Vladimir Lenin's pivotal work, Materialism and Empirio-Criticism, written in 1909, is Lenin's defense of dialectical materialism against the philosophical positions of empirio-criticism. Before we jump in, let's quickly define these key terms: materialism, empirio-criticism, and idealism. Empirio-criticism is a philosophical approach that blends elements of empiricism, the idea that knowledge comes from sensory experience, with a form of idealism. Empirio-critics argue that our knowledge of the world is entirely derived from our sensory experiences, which are subjective. Therefore, they question whether we can know anything about the objective world beyond these experiences. Next, idealism in philosophy refers to the belief that ideas or consciousness are the primary reality, and that the material world is shaped or determined by these ideas. Idealists argue that our understanding of the world comes primarily from our perceptions, thoughts, or spiritual experiences, rather than from the objective material world. Finally, materialism is the Marxist perspective that the material world, the world of physical objects, economic conditions, production, and labor, is the primary reality. According to materialism, our thoughts, consciousness, and social structures are shaped by the prevailing material conditions. For Marxists, understanding the material conditions of society, such as the modes of production and class relations, is essential to understanding history, politics, society, and social change. Lenin's following defense of materialism against empirio-criticism was crucial, because he believed that only a materialist approach could provide a scientifically grounded basis for Marxist theory and revolutionary practice. Materialism and Empirio-Criticism was written by Lenin during a crucial period of the Russian revolutionary movement, at a time when Marxist theory was under assault from various philosophical trends that questioned its foundations. Lenin saw the need to defend the core principles of dialectical materialism, the philosophical backbone of Marxism. Empirio-criticism, a philosophy that gained popularity among some intellectuals, attempted to blend elements of empiricism with idealism, challenging the materialist conception of reality that Marxism upholds. Lenin's work is a rigorous rebuttal of this philosophy and a reaffirmation of materialism as the correct basis for understanding the world and guiding revolutionary practice. The central theme of Lenin's work is the defense of dialectical materialism, the philosophical worldview that underpins Marxism. Dialectical materialism posits that the material world exists independently of our perceptions, and that all phenomena, including human consciousness, arise from material conditions. This perspective is grounded in the idea that matter is primary and consciousness is secondary, a direct challenge to idealism, which posits that ideas or consciousness are primary and that the material world is a product of thought. Dialectical materialism asserts that the material world exists independently of human perception, and that consciousness is a reflection of this material reality. Lenin critiques empirio-criticism for its attempt to blur the line between materialism and idealism. Empirio-critics, such as Ernst Mach and Richard Avenarius, argued that our knowledge of the world is based on sensory experiences, which they claimed were subjective, and thus questioned the existence of an objective reality. Lenin saw this as a form of idealism because it placed emphasis on perception and subjective experience over the objective existence of the material world. In defending dialectical materialism, Lenin emphasizes that materialism provides a consistent and scientifically grounded approach to understanding reality. It recognizes that the world operates according to objective laws that exist independently of human consciousness, and it is through scientific inquiry and practice that we come to understand these laws. By contrast, empirio-criticism, with its focus on subjective experience, opens the door to idealism and ultimately undermines the materialist basis of Marxism. Lenin's critique of empirio-criticism is thorough and multifaceted. He identifies it as a form of philosophical idealism that, despite its claims to be scientifically grounded, ultimately leads to solipsism, which is the idea that only one's mind is sure to exist. Empirio-critics argued that since our knowledge of the world comes through our senses, we cannot be certain of the existence of anything beyond our own experiences. Lenin counters this by arguing that empirio-criticism reduces objective reality to mere perceptions, which contradicts the materialist understanding that the material world exists independently of our consciousness. Empirio-criticism, by reducing reality to mere sense data, strips away the objective basis of knowledge, leading to a subjective and ultimately idealist worldview. Lenin is particularly critical of how empirio-criticism attempts to masquerade as a scientific philosophy. He points out that by denying the objective existence of the material world, empirio-criticism undercuts the very foundation of science, which relies on the assumption that the world operates according to consistent and discoverable laws. For Lenin, this rejection of objective reality is not only philosophically flawed, but also politically dangerous because it undermines the scientific basis of Marxism and opens the door to reactionary and anti-revolutionary ideas. Additionally, Lenin critiques the way empirio-criticism conflates sensations with the external world, suggesting that there is no distinction between the two. He argues that this confusion leads to a form of philosophical idealism, where reality is seen as dependent on human consciousness. This is in stark contrast to materialism, which asserts that consciousness is a product of the material world, not the other way around. Lenin emphasizes that this distinction is crucial for maintaining a clear and scientifically grounded understanding of reality. Lenin goes beyond a mere philosophical critique of empirio-criticism to explore its political implications. He argues that idealist philosophies like empirio-criticism can have reactionary political consequences because they undermine the materialist basis for understanding social relations and historical development. According to Lenin, idealism leads to a focus on ideas and consciousness at the expense of understanding the material conditions that shape society. Idealism, by shifting the focus from material conditions to ideas, diverts attention from the real material struggles that shape history and social change. Lenin warns that if Marxists were to adopt empirio-criticism, it would weaken the revolutionary movement by diverting attention away from the material conditions that need to be changed to achieve socialism. He argues that only by maintaining a materialist worldview can Marxists accurately analyze the forces of production, the relations of production, and the class struggles that drive historical development. Furthermore, Lenin suggests that empirio-criticism, with its emphasis on subjective experience, can lead to political passivity. If reality is seen as a product of perception rather than as an objective set of conditions that can be analyzed and changed, then the impetus for revolutionary action is diminished. Lenin stresses that the materialist understanding of history and society provides the theoretical foundation for revolutionary practice, enabling Marxists to identify the material forces that need to be transformed to achieve a classless society. One of Lenin's key arguments is that materialism provides the only solid foundation for scientific socialism. Scientific socialism, as developed by Marx and Engels, is based on the understanding that socialism is not an ideal to be aspired to, but a historical necessity that arises from the material conditions of society. This approach requires a materialist analysis of society, focusing on the economic base and the class relations that determine social and political life. scientific socialism is grounded in the materialist analysis of history, which reveals the laws of social development and the inevitability of socialism as a result of the contradictions of capitalism. Lenin argues that only materialism can provide the objective basis needed for such an analysis. By recognizing that the material world exists independently of our perceptions and that human consciousness is shaped by material conditions, Marxists can develop a scientific understanding of society and its development. This understanding, in turn, informs the strategies and tactics of the socialist movement, guiding it toward the revolutionary overthrow of capitalism and the establishment of socialism. In contrast, Lenin sees Empirio-Criticism as undermining this scientific approach. By denying the objective existence of the material world, Empirio-Criticism weakens the foundation of scientific socialism and opens the door to utopian and idealist interpretations of socialism. Lenin emphasizes that the strength of Marxism lies in its materialist analysis of history, which provides a clear and objective basis for understanding the dynamics of capitalism and the path to socialism. Finally, Lenin addresses the broader question of the role of philosophy in the revolutionary movement. He argues that philosophy is not a mere academic exercise, but a vital tool in the struggle for socialism. For Lenin, philosophical clarity is essential for maintaining the ideological integrity of the movement and for ensuring that Marxism remains a scientifically grounded and revolutionary theory. Philosophy is a weapon in the class struggle, and it is crucial that Marxists defend materialism against all forms of idealism that threaten to dilute the revolutionary character of our movement. Lenin stresses that materialism is not just a philosophical position, but a practical guide for action. By understanding the world as it really is, objectively and materially, Marxists can develop strategies that are grounded in reality and that have the potential to bring about real change. This is why Lenin was so determined to defend materialism against empirio-criticism and other forms of idealism, which he saw as threatening the theoretical and practical foundations of the revolutionary movement. Moreover, Lenin emphasizes that the struggle between materialism and idealism is not just a philosophical debate, but a reflection of the broader class struggle. Idealist philosophies, which prioritize ideas over material conditions, often serve the interests of the ruling class by obscuring the material basis of exploitation and oppression. In contrast, materialism provides the working class with the intellectual tools needed to understand and challenge their exploitation, making it an essential component of the revolutionary struggle. Lenin's rigorous defense of materialism in Materialism and Empirio-Criticism thus serves not only as a critique of a particular philosophical trend, but also as a reaffirmation of the core principles of Marxism and their importance for the revolutionary movement. In conclusion, Lenin's Materialism and Empirio-Criticism is a crucial work that defends the philosophical foundation of Marxism, dialectical materialism, against the encroachment of Empirio-Criticism, a philosophy that Lenin viewed as a dangerous form of idealism. Through a rigorous analysis, Lenin reaffirms the primacy of the material world over ideas, arguing that only by understanding the material conditions of society can Marxists develop a scientific and revolutionary approach to changing it. Lenin's work underscores the importance of maintaining a clear philosophical foundation for the socialist movement. He demonstrates that deviations from materialism, such as those proposed by empirio-critics, not only weaken the theoretical coherence of Marxism, but also threaten the practical effectiveness of the revolutionary struggle. By defending materialism, Lenin ensures that Marxism remains a scientifically grounded theory, capable of guiding the working class in its fight against capitalism. Ultimately, Materialism and Empirio-Criticism serves as both a philosophical treatise and a call to arms for Marxists to defend the integrity of their worldview. Lenin's defense of materialism is not just about safeguarding a set of abstract ideas. It is about ensuring that the revolutionary movement remains rooted in reality, capable of understanding and transforming the world in the interest of the working class. Thank you for watching. We have been the Left Library. If you have enjoyed today's episode, let us know in the comments. Please subscribe for more simplified politics.